Only 35 overs of play possible then on day one in Kanpur, but a day not short on storylines on ESPN Cricinfo Match Day. We've got Sanjay Manjrekar joining us to look back on the opening day of the second test between India and Bangladesh. Sanjay, a day where Kanpur has surprised us in more ways than one. Overhead conditions, the pitch, and the teams that were picked.
Yes, but you're slowly starting to understand the new team management, same captain, then you can see how they think in the way the playing 11 is getting selected and some decisions being made at the toss. We can't assume that it's Gautam Gambhir has a greater input or whatever, but start to get a little bit of an inkling as to what is happening.
Yes, which is why instead of focusing on the 35 overs of play, let's start with some of those decisions at the start, because India opting to bowl, which makes it both matches where it has happened. That's never happened back-to-back tests in India with the team winning the toss, opting to bowl. But India bowling, India going in with three pacers, having seen not a lot of cricket to see, but from what you saw today, does that feel like the right decision?
I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but I can understand the logic behind it. One is Bangladesh, where I can clearly see that the team management is thinking that it's better off, unleashing more seam and pace at Bangladesh rather than quality spin. And that's why Kuldeep Yadav is not getting opportunities. Plus, even in Chennai, there was a certain amount of coolness in the air. There was freshness, and that's why there was a thought of teams, wanting to bowl first. Plus the fact that it's a huge temptation when you have that reality in front of you, when you see a pitch that has little sort of sprouting green grass to suggest freshness. Plus, Bangladesh is not the strongest batting side in the world. So it is tempting to bowl first and skittle them out at a low score and then continue to feed off that advantage or a pitch that is bound to get better. Plus overhead conditions, maybe the forecast is, similar for day 2 and 3. And that could have been the reason, three seamers in the side. So India opting to bowl first.
Okay, so given that reasoning, how do you assess the state of play from these 35 overs? Have Bangladesh batted better than India would have expected them to?
No, I think the pitch has been pretty interesting in the sense that we saw Chennai, where clearly there was a lot more for the seam bowlers. In the sense that we saw extra bounce, and that is why we saw so many slip catches, edges. In India, most of the pitches, you rarely get edges. Plus, if you get one edge in a day, it rarely carries to the slip fielder, but that happened frequently at Chennai. So the bounce factor isn't there. So the help for the seam bowlers was lesser. Plus, even bowling first on what was supposed to be a fresh pitch, I didn't see too much of lateral movement. There was just maybe angle change with Akash Deep. You saw the ball not really deviating too much. So the bowlers were compelled to bowl into the stumps a lot more and perhaps trying to bowl that magic delivery as well. So it had a lot to do with the pitch not being as responsive as the one in Chennai.
All right. Among those Indian bowlers, a clear standout on day one, Akash Deep, who's almost bowled the entire amount of overs he bowled through the Chennai test on day one alone, 10 out of 35 overs, and clearly looked the best bowler that India had on the day, getting more and more impressive by the test.
Yes, and, when he made his debut in Ranches, well, you could see that he looked far better than Mukesh Kumar, who was playing as the third seamer at the time. So he's somebody that India will have in their top 4 or 5 when they go to Australia. And he continued with that same vein. He's got a very repeatable bowling action. You can see that he's bowled 1 million balls in his life and very good to left-handers, which is always, handy because there's so many left-handers around the world and keeps it simple. He's straight in the air, which I used to, as a batter, find that very difficult. Guys who are straight in the air give you nothing. So if you're a player with, you saw the two left-handers struggle with that same thing where, the ball was straight at them and just a little bit of movement. So that is something that goes in his favor. So yes, India found a very, very handy third seamer or fourth when Shami comes back. So India well stacked with Akash Deep doing so well, which will boost confidence a world of good.
Not a huge sample size, but just on what we saw on day one, if you see Siraj's 7 overs, where the runs were flowing a little easily comparatively, and Akash Deep's 10 overs, where he was almost always probing, what was the difference in what the two were doing?
Exactly that, where you can see that Akash Deep is a natural sort of straight bowler in the air, which means he doesn't give you much as a batter to work with. You don't get early angles to play shots. And, he's more a seam bowler in the sense that he pitches the ball around sort of good length and slightly up, but he tries to get something off the pitch. And, bowling in that first innings in Chennai, bowling first innings here is the ideal bowler to bowl when the pitch has something for the bowler and there's nothing much in the air via, movement. Mohammad Siraj is still in many ways a swing bowler. And that is why I guess, the pitch suited Akash Deep a little more. Plus, Akash Deep is bowling the best that he's done, in his short test career. And Siraj, what we've seen, it's not the best of Siraj. And when Siraj is at his best, we've seen what he can do. So I guess that is perhaps the reason.
Liked what you saw of the Bangladesh batting, much more competent looking than what we saw in Chennai. Mominul looking solid. Shanto looked quite enterprising too.
Yes, I believe that the two young openers have a pretty good future. Just didn't like the way, Zakir Hassan got out going forward to a short of length ball. In fact, leaving his freeze drive to defend. That is a technique I can't understand when the ball is not swinging. So it is up to people like Shanto and Mominul, who's got a lot of experience, and especially Mominul, because this is the guy who has done it for Bangladesh. And good to see that he's hanging around there, but they're still 3 down. So there is pressure when the seniors come in. And that's why I've always believed that when you're emerging as a team and wanting to be the best in the world, if you look at Indian cricket right from its inception start, all their, most capable batters batted at the top of the order. Sunil Gavaskar as an opener. Bangladesh tend to have their most capable, experienced batters down the order, which actually helps the opposition to get on top quickly. And then that advantage you have to regain as a team, a weak team, rather than go out there, send your best players at the top of the order and keep that advantage with yourself.
Yeah, you brought up Zakir Hassan. Not too often a young opener goes 20 plus balls without a run. Eventually fell right after that and fell to a catch, which, what did you make of the replays we saw?
Well, I guess you perhaps have an idea about my thoughts on soft signal, because I was always a supporter of the soft signal, because what you saw today with that catch of Yashasvi Jaiswal, who, by the way, has become a really good slip catcher, is that we didn't have a clear replay. Normally, you get a pretty decent replay where you see the ball going and lodging into the hands or bouncing in front, but we got 2 distant, very grainy replays, and a right decision was made in the end. But if you look at the umpire's position, I think it was Kettleborough at the bowler's end, he had a clear view of a fielder who was pretty close to him. And I'm sure his view was far more clearer, conclusive on ground, rather than what eventually the third umpire got. And that is why, I felt soft signal was a good, a method. Because in this case, the third umpire would have gone saying, it looks like he's taken it, but the replays aren't too clear. What do you think? He said, well, my reading of that was it was a pretty clean catch. So I just felt that system was better. It wasn't something that was like carved on stone saying that that's out. It was just his suggestion. And in this case, the on-field umpire just had a better, perception of the whole thing.
In a way, I'm glad this happened, because with this decision, the decisions of the toss, we at least got so much more to talk about on a day that only saw 35 overs of actual action on the field.
So I'll tell you something. Here on ESPN Cricket, we could have the most mundane action on the field for 2 days or whatever, but we still find something exciting to talk about, and it will be mostly something that is not glorifying of the action. So pick faults and flaws is the way we do it.
Fantastic. I'll ask my producers to mark that for the end of your promo. Thank you so much, Sanjay Manjrekar, for your time. Long may it continue.